It was late at night when I decided to take the long drive home. I had just finished a party with friends, and the roads were mostly empty. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a ghostly glow over the asphalt. I turned up the radio to drown out the silence. The music played softly, but my mind was racing. As I drove, the trees along the highway seemed to close in on me. Shadows danced in the corners of my eyes, but I brushed it off as fatigue. I had driven this route many times before, but tonight felt different. There was an unsettling stillness in the air, as if the world was holding its breath. About an hour into my drive, I saw something on the side of the road. A figure stood there, illuminated by the headlights. It was a young woman, her thumb out, begging for a ride. I hesitated, my heart pounding. I had always been warned about picking up hitchhikers, but something about her made me stop. As she climbed into the car, I noticed she was shivering. "Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice trembling. "I was waiting for so long." I smiled, trying to ease the tension. "Where are you headed?" I asked. "Just down the road a bit," she replied, staring out the window. I could see her reflection in the glass. Her face was pale, and her eyes looked haunted. I felt a chill run down my spine. We drove in silence for a while. I tried to make small talk, but she seemed distant. "Are you okay?" I finally asked. She turned to me, her eyes wide and fearful. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I shouldn't have come out tonight." "What do you mean?" I pressed, curiosity getting the better of me. She took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something out here. Something dangerous." I laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. "You mean like a bear or something?" She shook her head violently. "No. Something much worse." Her eyes darted around, as if she was afraid of being watched. Just then, the radio crackled, and the music stopped. A voice came through, distorted and eerie. "Stay away from the highway. It's not safe." My heart raced. I glanced at the woman, who looked even more terrified. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice shaking. She nodded, her face pale. "We need to get off this road. Now." I felt a surge of panic. I had never seen her like this before. I turned the wheel sharply, taking the next exit. The road was dark and winding, surrounded by thick trees. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, closing in on us. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. As we drove deeper into the woods, the woman began to cry softly. "I shouldn't have come out tonight," she repeated. "I should have listened." I wanted to comfort her, but I felt a knot of fear in my stomach. Suddenly, I saw headlights behind us, growing closer. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a dark car tailing us. "Who is that?" I asked, my voice trembling. The woman's eyes widened. "It's him. He's coming for me." I pressed the gas pedal, trying to lose the car. The trees blurred past us, their branches clawing at the windows. The other car stayed right behind us, relentless. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The road twisted and turned, but the dark car kept pace. "What do we do?" I shouted, panic rising in my throat. "We have to find a place to hide," she cried. I spotted a small cabin up ahead, barely visible through the trees. I swerved into the driveway, slamming the brakes. We jumped out of the car and ran toward the cabin. I fumbled with the door, finally managing to get it open. We rushed inside and locked the door behind us. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty. The air was thick with dust, and the only light came from a small window. I could hear the sound of the dark car outside, its engine rumbling ominously. The woman was shaking, her eyes wide with fear. "What is going on?" I demanded. "Who is after you?" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "He's not just a stranger. He's someone from my past. Someone I thought I escaped." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. I thought I could leave it all behind. But he found me. He always finds me. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the door. My heart raced as I turned to look. "He's here," she screamed. I backed away, my mind racing. I grabbed a heavy chair and moved it in front of the door. The banging continued, louder and more frantic. "Please, don't let him in," she cried. I could see the fear in her eyes, and it terrified me. I didn't know what to do. The door shook violently as he pounded on it. I could hear his voice, low and menacing. "Let me in. I just want to talk." I felt frozen, caught between fear and the need to protect this woman I barely knew. The door splintered with another blow, and I knew we didn't have much time. "Who is he?" I shouted over the noise. "He's my ex. He won't stop until he has me back," she sobbed. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy. "Why did you get in my car?" I asked, my voice rising. I didn't know he was following me. I thought I could escape. The door shook again, and I pushed the chair harder against it. "We need to find another way out," I yelled. She nodded, her face pale with fear. We rushed to the back of the cabin, searching for a window. As we fumbled in the dark, I heard the door give way. The figure of a man stepped inside, silhouetted against the dim light. "You can't run from me," he shouted, his voice filled with rage. In a panic, we found a window and pushed it open. "Go," I yelled, shoving her through first. I followed her, landing hard on the ground outside. We ran into the woods, branches scratching at our faces as we fled. Behind us, I could hear him shouting, his footsteps crashing through the underbrush. We didn't stop until we reached a small stream. I turned to look back, my heart racing. The man was still coming, but he seemed to be slowing down. "Keep going," I urged, pulling her along. We crossed the stream and continued deeper into the woods, hoping to lose him. The darkness surrounded us, but I felt a flicker of hope. After what felt like hours, we finally stopped to catch our breath. The night was quiet, the only sound was the rushing water nearby. I looked at her, my mind racing. "What now?" I asked, panting. She looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude and fear. "Thank you for helping me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped." I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, fear, and a hint of something else. "I can't go back," she said, her voice trembling. "He'll find me again." I nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "You can stay with me," I offered, surprising myself. "We can figure this out together." We sat by the stream, the moonlight reflecting off the water. I felt a connection with her, but the fear still lingered in the back of my mind. What would happen next? Would we be safe? As the first light of dawn began to break, I knew we had a long road ahead. The past wouldn't let her go easily, and I was now part of that story. The shadows of the night faded, but the uncertainty remained. The feeling of dread still hung in the air, a reminder that sometimes, the things that haunt us are not easily escaped. We were free for now, but the darkness was always lurking, waiting for another chance to strike. The rain hammered against the windshield, blurring the already fading light. I gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, my eyes glued to the road. Every rumble of thunder sent a jolt through me, mirroring the fear clawing at my chest. I was late. Terribly late. My phone, a useless brick in the downpour, lay abandoned on the passenger seat. I tried calling Lisa, worried sick, but the signal had cut out miles back. The desolate highway stretched before me, an endless ribbon of asphalt piercing the storm-racked darkness. I glanced at the gas gauge. Almost empty. Panic tightened its grip. The nearest gas station, according to the last sign I'd seen, was another 50 miles down this forsaken road. 50 miles in this weather, with the storm raging and night closing in, felt like an eternity. A shiver ran down my spine. I wasn't alone on this road. I'd seen them earlier, a cluster of cars pulled over, hoods up, silhouettes huddled against the wind. They didn't look like ordinary travelers. More like predators. My foot pressed harder on the gas pedal, but the engine coughed, sputtering, and then dying. The car lurched to a stop, the headlights casting a feeble glow into the swirling rain. I cursed, the sound swallowed by the tempest. Getting out of the car was like stepping into an ice bath. The rain lashed down, soaking me to the bone in seconds. I peered into the darkness, my heart pounding like a drum. The other cars were gone. Vanished. I tried to flag down passing traffic, but the highway remained eerily empty. The storm, it seemed, had emptied the road of all life. Desperation gnawed at me. I had to find shelter. I spotted an abandoned diner a few hundred yards ahead, a rusty sign swaying precariously in the wind. It was a long shot, but it was better than being stranded here in the open. The diner was a ramshackle building, paint peeling, windows shattered. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. I found a flickering lantern in the back room, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and coil. The silence was deafening, broken only by the relentless drumming of rain against the roof. I found a dusty booth in the corner, huddled inside, shivering. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl, emanating from somewhere deep within the diner. My blood ran cold. I wasn't alone. Fear, cold and clammy, gripped me. I searched for a weapon, anything, a broken bottle, a piece of wood. I found nothing. The growling intensified, drawing closer. I held my breath, listening intently. The sound seemed to be coming from the basement, a dark, gaping hole beneath the floorboards. I was trapped. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked above me. I froze, every sense on high alert. The creaking continued, slow and deliberate, moving closer. Then, a face appeared in the doorway. Pale, gaunt, with eyes that glowed an eerie green in the dim light. It was a woman, her clothes tattered, her hair matted with rain. She smiled, a chilling, predatory smile that revealed a set of long, sharp teeth. "Lost, traveler," she hissed, her voice a raspy whisper. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. She stepped into the booth, her eyes fixed on me. The growling from below intensified, closer now, almost beneath my feet. "You smell good," she purred, her breath hot and foul on my face. Fresh meat. Terror, raw and primal, consumed me. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this was the end. Suddenly, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the diner. The woman recoiled, shielding her eyes. I seized the opportunity, scrambling out of the booth and sprinting towards the back of the diner. I heard her enraged cries behind me, the growling now a deafening roar. I stumbled through the darkness, my heart pounding against my ribs. I reached the back door, the rusty handle refusing to budge. I pounded on it with my fists, desperation fueling my strength. The door creaked open, a sliver of light escaping into the storm-lashed night. I burst through, gasping for air, the rain washing over me. I turned to look back at the diner. The woman stood in the doorway, her face contorted in a mask of fury. Behind her, the basement door burst open, a horde of creatures emerging, their eyes glowing green in the darkness. They were grotesque, humanoid figures, their bodies twisted and deformed, their limbs elongated and unnatural. I didn't hesitate. I turned and ran, the creatures in hot pursuit. I could hear their guttural roars, their heavy footsteps pounding behind me. I ran until my legs could no longer carry me, collapsing onto the rain-slicked asphalt. I lay there, panting, listening to the sounds of the hunt receding into the distance. The storm raged on, the rain a relentless torrent. I lay there, shivering, my body aching, my mind reeling from the horror I had witnessed. I had escaped death, but at what cost? I had seen things that no human should ever witness, things that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The highway stretched before me, empty and desolate, the rain washing away all traces of my ordeal. But I knew that the horrors I had encountered that night would forever be etched into my soul, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of our world. As the storm began to subside, a sliver of moon emerged from the clouds, casting an eerie glow over the desolate landscape. I looked up at the sky, a single tear tracing a path down my rain-soaked cheek. I had survived, but at what cost?